before we hopped on, Versan was talking about Janet Yellen, and so the stuff that she's proposed and in Congress the other day, they're going to bring in regulation, and yeah, what do you guys think the implications of that's going to
Mhm.
be? We got the stablecoin bill that's out there.
Oh,
Where do
yeah.
y'all think that leads?
After listening to Janet Yellen's statements, she's advocating for crypto regulation, which is also long overdue. We see this as a positive step forward because now we're talking about what needs to be discussed. As it's just so disheartening to see how, for the last 2 years, we've been raising all these alarms about what she's talking about. And this was largely ignored. They turned a blind eye to all of this. We saw the fall of FTX, Celsius, Terra Luna, and it's like people forgot about all that. Her statements reflect on what's happening in today's traditional banking system and all the challenges that we see over there. This ties into is the importance of stable coins. And I think it's probably the most important thing that nobody's really covering as much as we should be covering, because we want to talk about digital assets and crypto, but we don't want to talk about the stability of it. I see this as a positive step moving forward.
Yeah, I would agree. Jerome Powell's talked about private stable coins. He's mentioned that those will exist. And I think things will exist on a continuum. There'll obviously be CBDCs, and I know there's a lot of fear and concern about that. There could be a totalitarian, uh, you know, establishment that invokes certain rules, and if that's the only currency that you can use, then it limits people's capacity to earn, save, do what they need to do. I don't think that that'll be the case here in the U.S. I think that our culture and constitution and laws, inhibit that from happening. And I think there'll be, sovereign nations will issue CBDCs and use the smart contracts that they're able to code on top of those to incentivize and disincentivize spending in their economy as fits within their cultural norms.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, we've got bridge currencies that we like that will allow all that to be interoperable. I think that that'll be a huge catalyst, potentially for maybe even some broader implications in the market when it comes to tether
Yes.
and the most liquid assets that currently exist. Um, you know, Depending on how that gets audited and what that looks like when that regulation's brought in, it could have a catastrophic effect or a euphoric effect on the market. We'll have to see, which way it goes.
Yeah, well, in regards to that specifically, I think as regulations really get solidified, um, I think it would be very euphoric for people that own these assets before regulations, and I think it would be catastrophic for those trying to get in afterwards because they might even come up with laws that are same as the equities and stock market, where you have to be an accredited investor, have $1 million or more to
Mm-hmm.
participate for your safety. So, yeah, I see that coming with digital assets once regulations are in place at some point. I think there would be a chance of that because just how you can buy stocks and, get involved pre-IPO, they have regulations around that for accredited investors. But right now is the time where the little guy actually has a competitive advantage where you don't have those barriers in place where you can participate and get your hands on them and store them early before the regulations really fall in line. So I think that's an amazing thing for people that are interested in participating. What do you think,
Yeah,
Jake?
it's a huge opportunity right now for people, and you're not, 99% of these things are going to go to zero. I'm just going
Yeah,
to be with you.
absolutely,
I
There's
agree
100%.
with you.
there's a ton of garbage out there, but if you can do some research on your own and get in with the right people and figure out where things are going to go and position yourself now, previous to those liquidity events and the adoption of this technology, yeah, I think you could generate significant wealth for yourself and maybe future generations, right? And that's where we come in at Digital Ascension Group. We want to provide, the expertise and the guidance for wealth management and make sure you don't have to get rich again or you don't lose it on the other side of this. Most people end up, and when I say most people, it's a statistic, like people that
Yeah,
win the lottery and come into a lot of money very quickly and they don't have the network of people, the experience managing the capital, the skill sets, traits, and beliefs that are required in order to do that, they end up going bankrupt within 3 to 5 years.
Yeah,
Um,
that's accurate.
and so,
Yeah.
I would encourage people to develop those things as well previous to the liquidity event. I'll have a lot of people that are proactive and we meet with and we help them set up LLCs or trusts or things to protect them and mitigate tax implications. And once those things are in place, people feel accomplished and they're happy and they've taken, you talked about the milestones, right? You want to have these stair steps to things, and oftentimes they come back and they say, well, what's next? And I'm like, sit on your hands.
Yeah.
And learn, become the person you need to be. Jim Rohn said, it's best that you become a millionaire before you make $1 million. Otherwise, you'll just end up losing it. So that would be kind of the message, for people that maybe have been proactive and put things in place. Just continue to develop yourself. Personal development's always in, a good investment. And I think that there's going to be a lot of people whose lives get changed because of this opportunity. On the accredited investor piece that you mentioned there, Biden did propose that they move that to 10 million. So currently the qualifications for an accredited investor here in the US are that as an individual, if you're not married, you make more than $200,000 a year. If you are married, I think it's like 350. Or you have $1 million net worth between you and your spouse outside of your equity in your primary residence. All of those qualify. Or you can take the Series 65 and deal with all the compliance and reporting and having a broker sponsor you. And it's just a lot of headache for that.
Yeah.
So these are wholesale prices. That's what I tell everyone.
Yeah. And they're
retail is for suckers. The institutional adoption hasn't happened yet. And I think that's because of the regulation. So really, this is an opportunity to be investing again in the economy for tomorrow.
And I'll just mention, I'm sure you guys put a disclaimer on this, but nothing here is financial advice, only for entertainment and educational purposes only. Always speak with the financial advisor before making any investment decisions. But yeah, I completely agree with you. I know people, well, I'll tell you a story about my dad.
Yeah.
So before he passed away, back in 2008, I watched him get decimated. He had the majority of his wealth in the market. And at the bottom, he had about 100,000 left. He had invested his whole life, and after all of it, he had pulled out close to the bottom. And before they bailed out American Airlines, he had a buy order with the full 100,000 set up on the computer at like a little over $1 a share.
Oh.
And I watched him back out and not pull the trigger on that. Had he done that, he would have been retired much sooner. Probably had a better quality of life, maybe even lived longer. There's going to be opportunities in your life. There's other people that I've talked to that knew about Bitcoin in 2010 or 2011 and didn't buy it, or it was just too hard. They didn't want to mess with it. There's been other people I've talked to that had a bunch of Tesla stock early on and got fudded out of that when he got sued by the SEC. Same thing with Amazon, in the early 2000s when the market crashed in and there were opportunities. When everybody else is scared, that's when the opportunities exist. And when everybody else is euphoric, it's probably the time to sell.
100%, Jake. And on your point right there, that when the market crashed, for example, from the lawsuit with, for example, with these companies during the dot-com bubble, as long as the fundamentals haven't changed, nothing matters. If it goes to zero, I'm gonna buy a ton load of it because that's a mega Black Friday sale. That's how I see it. Because nothing has changed other than the price and price action. I mean, price is a horrible indicator of where it's going. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Everything reverts to the mean too. And like you said, I like Ben Graham and Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. Munger just passed away recently. God rest his soul. Berkshire Hathaway's made literally billions of dollars on value investing. Right? You find something that's fairly valued or underpriced in comparison to whatever the product or service it is that they're offering, the enterprise value.
Yeah,
and you buy it.
It's a simple method.
Like it's not complicated. Most people want to get rich quickly. Um, and that happens in this space too. And that'll also spoil people. Because if you do make money very quickly, that's what you think is the norm. And it's normally not that way. It normally takes 5, 10, 20 years to really build wealth. And you have to be consistent. You have to take action over that period. And, the people that have been here, that have been in the space since 2017, 18, 19, you've probably, you've got patience. You've developed some of those traits
Absolutely.
at this point. We got the lawsuit with Ripple, and that's been extended and drawn out. And I know a lot of people have fallen off. But that's also the reason there's a 1%. If it was easy, everybody would do it.
Absolutely.
So,
Right. Well, I always tell people to, again, not financial advice, but if they're making these investments, again, in my opinion, this is a long-term game. We've already been waiting for quite a while. I think, like my brother said, milestones, we're getting closer, but make those investments kind of just dollar cost average gradually, put them aside, and try not to pay attention to all the noise. And there's a lot of noise in there. And I see that. If you understood the fundamentals and done the research, you have nothing to worry about. Focus on your income, for instance. So me personally, I'm trading stocks all day. I'm still trading ETFs in traditional markets. So I just don't spend too much time listening to all the noise.